what really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Thursday, December 15th, 2016. Sure happy it's Thursday, sure happy it's Thursday, sure happy it's Thursday. 10 days until Christmas. And all of that insanity will be over, and then it's a week until New Year's, and we'll have a lot of fun on that. Claire and I are hearing the illegal fireworks being played with all around the neighborhood, so it's probably going to be a very, very raucous New Year. We have a lot of stuff to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, ready to answer the phone when you call on in. And today is the anniversary of the ratification of the Bill of Rights. Remember when we used to have a Bill of Rights that guaranteed things like freedom of speech, a right to privacy, a right to a speedy trial, and all that other stuff? And golly, I miss those days, don't you? Basically, we are the victims of a government that has been struggling to break free of the chains that the Founding Fathers, in their wisdom, placed on that government when it was created. And that, of course, is always the evolution or devolution toward dictatorship. All right, let's move on down here and getting onto this whole circus, Clinton-Mageddon. This whole Russia hacking thing is starting to fall apart, as we kind of knew it would anyway. And it began with the House Intelligence Committee Chairman, Devin Nunes, sent a letter to the intelligence agencies, Clapper and Brennan, saying, you need to come and testify before us as to what evidence you have that Russia hacked the election this year. And both Clapper and Brennan have refused. And that is quite striking, because the House Intelligence Committee has the oversight over the intelligence agencies. They really don't have grounds to refuse. And not too surprisingly, of course, those hearings have now been canceled, because it's going to be a bunch of congressmen looking at an empty table, and who wants to do that here? Now, moving on to this whole thing, and in response to the fact that Brennan and Clapper have basically said, we're not showing up, Nunes and King are both out there saying it is becoming very obvious that the CIA is manipulating intelligence for political purposes. Gee, you think? That's precisely what they're doing. And they're upping the ante now. NBC News came out with a story saying that Vladimir Putin was personally involved, personally supervising the hacking of the American election. I mean, they're just ramping this up, and ABC, citing NBC as the authoritative source we would never, ever question, is running their own story that links Vladimir Putin directly to the alleged Russian hacking of the election system. Now, Donald Trump is out there making a very good point. If Russia was hacking our systems and everything, why did the White House only complain after Hillary lost? It does seem like it's very reactive. And I have a little more common sense for everybody to be paying attention to. If Putin had the ability to rig elections, don't you think he would have started with Ukraine and prevented Poroshenko from getting in there? Because after Poroshenko was installed in that U.S.-backed coup d'etat, they did have an election to legitimize his position as the puppet ruler of Ukraine. Don't you think Putin would have had motive to go on in there and rig that election? And he didn't. Now, it's kind of funny watching the White House spokesslug, because they were out there doing a press briefing about, all the hacking going on, and the spokesperson kept saying it was China had hacked our election. China's hacking that, and the reporters in the room were trying to correct them. Don't you mean Russia? Yeah. You're right. It's one of those countries over there on the other side of the globe. You can't expect me to keep track of all the nations we've angered. They're all in cahoots together against us anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Russia, China, what difference at this point does it make? Oh, my goodness. And, of course, our corporate media even as they scream about this idea that Russia has somehow hacked our election, even though there doesn't seem to be any proof of it whatsoever, do you realize how much election rigging they ignore by the CIA? I mean, the CIA has a long record of going into other people's countries and tampering with the elections. Our corporate media never talks about that. And they're still not talking about all the massive election fraud that's been found up in Michigan, all of which favored Hillary Clinton. So everybody here needs to call the local TV station for the networks, your local NBC, ABC, CBS, whatever, and just ask, why aren't you covering the election fraud that was uncovered in Michigan? Because if they get a flood of phone calls, we can force this story onto the network news, like we did the Downing Street memo. Remember when that first surfaced and it was all over the independent media, and everybody knew about it, and the corporate media was out there trying to pretend it didn't exist, until the public outcry reached the point where the corporate media said, it's very obvious we're covering up this story. We got to do something about that. So it can be done. All right, let's grab a phone call here. Bob in Las Vegas. And we're going to do a shout-out now to our on-air affiliates who've just rejoined our network. Bob in Las Vegas, welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, hi, Mike. The CIA's been active in this interfering in foreign elections since after World War II. I believe in Italy, because the Communist Party was a big threat over there, and they were involved in funneling money to the opposition. So they've been in this business for a long time. I
mean, they rigged the Cuban elections to put Batista into power.
I'm sure. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, well, no, that's it. That's the point I was going to make. The CIA is constantly rigging elections in other countries, which makes it hypocritical for them to stand up here and say, the gosh darn Ruskies are coming on in, and they're cutting in on our action because we're the only ones who are allowed to rig elections around the world because the United States stands for freedom and lightness and all these other good things.
Well, based on what you said yesterday, I'm sure we'll hear from the corporate media that they have solid, of course unnamed, solid sources on the ground in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin that Putin was sighted on the ground near the polling stations.
Yes.
So, interfering with those machines. But, Mike, I'm just wondering, I was looking over that Prop or Not baloney site, and did you know that the Liberty Veterans website is on that list?
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Shocking. I mean, what is that doing on that site? I mean, what do they have to do with Russia or fake news? I mean, it actually did happen, and we know that the Israelis were behind it. So where's the falsity? I'm a little confused here.
Well, basically, Prop or Not eventually came on out with an update to their page, which explained that the list was assembled simply from websites that linked to Russia Today. That was it. That was their entire criteria for declaring people to be agents of Russia's intelligence services, was they linked to Russia Today. That was it.
Are you noticing more, since that list came out, the original list, are you noticing more activity hacking against your website than before?
It's gotten pretty intense in the last few days, and we're dealing with it as best we can, and we're not the only one. I got an email from another webmaster of an independent media website. They're now getting these massive attacks as well. They're just trying to shut us all down here in this last week before the grab for the Electoral College.
Like, did you hear? This speaks to the corporate media, what it's become. Did you hear about that vicious tweet that Julie Ioffe put out about Ivanka Trump?
Yeah, I mean, can you believe that nonsense? Now, Politico has fired her for that.
But she was hired by Atlantic.
By the Atlantic, yeah. I mean, it's like, so you lied for somebody, whatever. Remember when ABC got sued over that Food Lion story? Where they were trying to damage Food Lion because Food Lion refused to unionize. The producer of that segment was fired because of the lawsuit and immediately hired by CNN.
Amazing. Yeah, I saw her. She came out with a second tweet saying, "Sorry, it won't happen again." You know, those.
they always say that. You know, right after Trump's election, you know, the media came out with all of these various and sundry faux repentant editorials. We let our viewers and readers down, and we promise we're going to do better. And yet here we are, just a couple of weeks later, and they're still doing the same thing. You know, Russia and Trump are trading wet, sloppy kisses, and they can't change their business model because they're paid to be liars. If they stop lying, those big, fat paychecks go away.
I just hope Trump gets in there, because if he does, according to another article I read today, they're going to make some big changes in that White House press briefing room. You know, change the seating. Maybe put all the corporate correspondents in the back row.
They may not even get in the door. He may not even let them in the door. I mean, Trump is preparing, and he's already demonstrated this. He is bypassing the corporate media and going directly to the American people through Twitter, through his YouTube channel. I presume that the media company that his son-in-law is getting ready to set up will become the favored channel for the Trump administration. And Trump has explained, I'm not going to go through the corporate media because I cannot trust them to report on what I'm saying without trying to spin it against me. And he's absolutely right.
Absolutely not.
And, you know,
he hit Vanity Fair hard today, and Graydon Carter. You know, it was beautiful. You know, he has to keep doing that. I'm all for these tweets. But Mike, I wanted to ask you one last question. Lately, on my iPhone, which I got about a year ago, whenever I go to RT, it seems like, I don't know, it doesn't download the page, or I have to keep continually shutting my phone off to have it reset. What do you think is causing that?
You know, it would not surprise me. It would not surprise me if they were trying to plant malware on Russia Today and Sputnik News and the rest to try and discourage people from going to those websites. Or it just could be the fact that the current state of software development in the United States is absolute crud, as Microsoft keeps repeatedly demonstrating. And it's hard to know what's going on. But we do know that the government is now passing all these laws where they can declare anybody who's not part of the corporate media a traitor and hack their systems. And it's not like they haven't been doing it all along, but now they want to be able to say, I have the legal authority to break into your server and just wreck the place.
I'm ashamed to live in a country that targets independent, alternative, that doesn't agree with their narrative. That's what it's come to. I mean, that's how insecure and pathetic these people are. That they're so insecure they have to go after websites like your own, RT, and it's really sad.
Well, when you live with a government that lies, telling the truth is a revolutionary act.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, Mike, can I just ask you one last thing, a medical question?
Sure.
And maybe one of your viewers could maybe give some input as well.
Yeah.
I have a friend, when she was 13, she was diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome. And about a month ago, she was given a medication called metformin or metformin.
Yeah.
METFORMIN. At that same time, she went on the Atkins diet. And she's had a lot of, and today especially, she's in her mid-20s now, she's had a lot of bleeding. Really intense today. Really intense.
But she's got to go to her doctor. I mean, this is way outside my knowledge, and sphere of influence. The nurse blamed the Atkins diet and not the medication. So well, they're always going to try and blame something other than their own medications. We're seeing that with the vaccines as well, and it gets even worse than that. Congress just passed a law which actually lowers the requirements for the safety testing of medications coming out of the pharmaceutical industry. So now they can get the stuff onto the shelves faster and quicker and with less concern about the safety. And we're already living in a country where you'll watch TV and you'll see a commercial for the newest medication immediately followed by the ambulance-chasing lawyers commercial for everybody who just got harmed by that same medication.
I see that all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mike. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And we're going to take a phone call from Bruce in Texas. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, hello. Aloha.
Aloha.
Yeah, I need to see, maybe I need to make some mentions here. I've come to the realization, I was watching Dr. Strangelove, and the general, he mentions the Russian. You ever notice the Russian never drinks water?
Yeah.
Vodka. Well, I drink Russian vodka sometimes when I listen to your show, Black Russian, sometimes a White Russian. There may be something in that vodka that the KGB may be putting in there to make it focus up. I don't know. What do you think?
Yes, it's they're trying to sap and impurify our precious bodily fluids.
That's right. I need to drink more fluoride. Is what I need to do. I'm going to look for that bottle that the water with extra fluoride is still at the store for. You give your baby. You see that stuff?
Well, listen, why don't you get the bottled water coming out of Flint, Michigan, with all that lead in there as well, and that'll convince you to vote for Hillary.
Yeah, that sounds even better. You're familiar with the Balfour Declaration?
Yes, I am. Very much so.
Okay, yeah. People that don't know, it was an agreement between, I think it was, which Rothschild was it at the time? I can't recall, but
Rothschild didn't actually sign the document. I mean, Lord Balfour wrote it. The Rothschilds were sort of the behind the scenes pushing it forward. And it was basically where Great Britain committed itself to taking Palestine and giving it to Israel, even though Great Britain didn't actually own Palestine and it wasn't theirs to give.
Right, and in exchange, the unwritten agreement was we'll get America in the war to help you out through the media and through our contacts in government. And Woodrow Wilson was running for the election. He was saying, "Oh, absolutely, I will not commit America to a war there in Europe," because nobody really wanted to be involved in it.
No, they really didn't. But, Woodrow Wilson was a president, and he said what he thought the voters wanted to hear. And he basically, took a lot of money from the bankers, and then he gave the bankers what they wanted, which was the Federal Reserve.
Sure did. And they also, the New York Times, it was owned by a Mr. Ock. I can't recall his first name. He's a Zionist. They started issuing what's called atrocity propaganda. The Huns are bayonet and Belgian babies.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Every war is launched with this huge cloud of lies about what the bad people are doing. They're doing it even now in Syria, saying that the Syrian forces in Aleppo are committing genocide against the people. And, of course, we're getting all this material out from on the ground in Aleppo. The Syrian people they're having a great time. Russia's brought in a bunch of humanitarian aid. They're finally getting a chance to eat a decent meal, and basically it's a party over there. But the Western media is still pushing this idea, bad, Assad is evil, Assad is killing his own people, and apparently John Kerry is running around the world trying to find some way to either bribe or blackmail other governments to jump on board this thing about, oh yes, Assad is being bad to his own people, we support your war, blah, 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 blah. Okay?
Mm-hmm. And do you know what the British or Americans, I don't know who exactly did it, but the Atlantic cable, which was the only means of communication electronically between Europe and America at the time, they cut the Atlantic cable to make sure there was no counterbalance to their atrocity propaganda being put through the mainstream media.
Yeah, just like they're trying to do by shutting down the independent media today so they can come on out with Putin is a Death Star, Putin is torturing Wookiees with Velcro, and there aren't any counterpoints to go on back. Anyway, listen, Bruce, I'm going to let you go. It's a really bad phone connection. I'm having trouble understanding you, and we're coming up on a commercial break. So when we come on back, we're going to take a few more phone calls. Then we're going to close the phone lines because I got a bunch of news I need to get through today, especially about this whole electoral college circus and the Russian hacking story. That's really beginning to fall apart. So we'll be right back after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're going to go back to the phones here for a couple of phone calls, then we're going to close the lines and do some news here. Steve in California, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, to your caller that called about the metformin and the bleeding, with my medical experience, I don't know that to be a consequence, a side effect from the metformin, but I do know that some physicians are using metformin as a dieting source and it's unauthorized to use it for that cause. It's actually used for diabetes, you know that.
Yeah, it's type 2 diabetes. I had a bunch of people writing on in saying that, yeah, metformin is for treating type 2 diabetes, and it sounds like this girl's doctor is using it off-label.
Yes, I think so, and Atkins on top of it would be a disaster. I think he definitely better stop it and better go get that checked out. But that's not what I called on. I called on basically with this fake news of trying to implicate and point a finger at Russia for hacking our elections. I keep waiting for the talking heads in corporate media, or maybe even the White House press secretary, to say, well, our sources, we have sources, and we could tell you who they are, but then if we told you that, we'd have to have the CIA kill you. So that's how that goes.
Just take our word for it. We wouldn't lie to you. We're the U.S. government. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Hey, what's the word on the missing CEO from the Clinton Foundation? He's been missing for 53 days now.
Well, I imagine he and Brian Pagliano are having a very nice game of checkers down on the deck of the Titanic.
Well, I thought maybe he might end up at Fort Marcy Park on a bench.
Well, the Titanic's just as good. It's only 2 miles down in the Atlantic. It's not like any of us are going to be able to get to him and ask him any questions.
Yeah, that's it. Hey, thanks, Michael.
All right, thanks an awful lot. Dustin in New Jersey, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
We're at war, Mike.
Yes.
This is for the whole ball of wax. People don't realize it. They're not going to let up. I'm a Democrat. I voted for Obama because I fell for his hope and change. I didn't know he meant hopefully you have no change left.
Yes.
You know? I voted for Trump, and these people will not let up. Did you see that three-way RT, pal, that scum bucket Brad Bodinsky?
Mm-hmm.
Brett Bodinsky? Wasn't he in one of the emails, I believe?
Yes, he was. And what you need to understand something is we have had a criminal government for 30 years. They're steeped in drug money profits and corruption. And their concern is, with Trump in the White House, people are going to start getting prosecuted. And they're to save themselves. They're going to turn on their co-conspirators, and they're going to say, well, I may have done this, but them over there, I'll make you a deal. Let me go, and I'll give you the evidence for these big people over here. And it's all going to unwind all the way back to Iran-Contra. That's why they're so scared.
And he would, Vanessa, the woman who's been to Syria multiple times, she was in Aleppo. She was trying to these people don't want to hear it. It's not their agenda. If
it isn't. They're paid liars.
Warming, you're the enemy.
They're paid liars. Yeah, they're paid liars, and from their point of view, anybody with the truth is the enemy, is a bad person. How dare you come on in and wreck this fantasy that I've worked so hard to create for the American people?
Mike, these people are going to take us over a cliff. These people are extremely dangerous. This is not no funny matter, because you got celebrities now calling it for a coup. Trump's going to get in. He just better have a lot of protection, because they don't have the delegates. I mean, they don't have the election.
Yeah, I've got an update on that in a little bit here, but I'm still very concerned about this thank you tour. He's in Pennsylvania tonight, and I don't know if it's his ego or whatever, but right now the only path that Hillary has right now to the White House is for Donald Trump to be assassinated before the Electoral College meets next Monday, because after it meets and Trump is voted through, anything that happens to Trump puts Mike Pence into the White House. And he's of the same mindset as Donald Trump. And so if I were Donald Trump's head of security, I would lock him in a bank vault until Tuesday morning. Because
the thing is, though, I don't think they need to add another ring of security, but maybe they should change up the itinerary. You know what I mean? Because that will throw a monkey wrench if somebody had a plan for something,
All right. Well, Dustin, I need to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back. Hi, America. Welcome back to the show here, and we're going to take one more phone call, then we're going to close the phone lines for a bit. Gina in Texas, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Mike. I just wanted a little clarification. I heard this out of Roger Stone last night, that the electors, the 30 electors that are wanting to hear the information from the CIA about the Russian hacking are already Democrats and would not be voting for Trump anyway.
That's correct.
That there's only one Republican elector that's threatening to bail.
That's the flake from Texas.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that's basically the situation here right now. And the claim is they've got 20 Republicans ready to vote for Hillary Clinton. That is notwithstanding scrutiny. We're going to be talking about that in a few minutes. And the other issue is because there are 2 Hillary electors who are saying they can't bring themselves to vote for her, Hillary needs 41 Trump electors to jump ship. That is an impossible number for them to reach. And that's why I'm saying, if anybody from Trump's campaign is listening to this show, please tell security to, double up on the coffee and the no-dos and make sure that Trump is wearing his Kevlar Armani, because right now the only path remaining for Hillary to get into that White House is for Donald Trump to be assassinated before the Electoral College meets. After that, it's a done deal, and that'll be the end of Hillary's path to the White House.
I agree. I think that's the only course left. I think we're tying this up left and right, and Trump's going to get in regardless of all the terrible actions of these people.
Yes.
So that's all I wanted to make sure that people are understanding, that these electors they're talking about are already Democrat electors.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. All right, thank you very much. We're going to let you go.
Thanks.
We're going to close the phone lines here, and we're going to get some news here. And basically, how we got into this whole thing about Russia hacked the election and Vladimir Putin was personally on his Windows machine, digging into all this other stuff and tinkering with the election. It came from an anonymous source who said there was a CIA secret report saying that Russia hacked the election. And the Washington Post ran with that story based on an anonymous source saying there was a secret report, which the CIA itself is now saying, no, there was no secret report. But that didn't stop the New York Slimes, CBS, NBC, all the rest of them from citing the Washington Post and saying it's absolutely a given that Russia tinkered with our election. How could they do that to us? And so forth and so on. Now, interestingly enough, Obama did an interview where the interviewer was trying to pull back and say, let's forget about how the DNC emails came on out, and let's talk about what was inside, which led to Debbie Wasserman Schultz's resignation, and it exposed the fact that the DNC was throwing the nomination to Hillary Clinton anyway, something else the corporate media is pretending never happened. And Obama basically did a shrug and said, well, there's no bombshells in the DNC emails. I mean, it's routine stuff that goes on all the time. That's how he tried to describe it as business as usual, to steal nominations and steal elections. And why are we just making such a big deal about this, We should all grow up and realize the system is crooked and corrupt and learn to love our crooked, corrupt government here. Now, taking a somewhat different view of the DNC emails, White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest came on out and declared that any media outlets that reported on the contents of those hacked DNC emails are arms of Russian intelligence. You're all commie spies. The communists are gone, Josh. We are all Russian spies here. Well, if the White House says I'm an arm of Russian intelligence, it simply must be true, right? Does Putin owe me back pay? Because I haven't gotten a check from them. It's amazing here. Now, we're beginning to see the rats deserting the ship here. It's starting to get interesting. Loretta Lynch has come on out. She was at an event with Politico's Anna Palmer and Jake Sherman yesterday, in fact, early this morning. And she came on out and said that there is no evidence that the Department of Justice has seen that Russian hackers breached the integrity of the U.S. election system. Department of Homeland Security has. We'll get into that in a little bit, but not Russia. Secretary of State John Kerry is saying he cannot confirm this anonymous report that Putin was hacking the U.S. election. And like I said before, if Putin had that ability, if he developed the capability of tinkering with other nations' elections, he would have used it in Ukraine to get Poroshenko out. But that hasn't stopped Obama from ordering a new full review of Russia's hacking of the U.S. elections, and he's going to go on ordering reviews until he gets the result he wants. Now, getting on back to the Department of Homeland Security, Georgia is conducting an investigation. They've demanded a formal explanation from the Department of Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security is saying, we'll get back to you on that in 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 years. And they have now discovered 10 separate attempts by the Department of Homeland Security to get into their voter information system. And now 2 more states have come out to say they're looking at their election system, and they also had attempted intrusions from those IP addresses linked to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So I'm going to come out here with a little bit of a theory. I think it was decided that they were going to go with this Russia hacked our elections a while back, and the Department of Homeland Security was given the task of breaking into U.S. election systems and planting evidence that could be discovered, proving that it was Vladimir Putin. And they got caught, they got blocked, they weren't able to get in. But that fits with the timeline about what's going on here. Now, the Secretary of State for Georgia has asked Donald Trump, upon taking office January 20th, to investigate the Department of Homeland Security over this attempt to hack into the U.S. election system. And one more time, as a reminder, Julian Assange has said the DNC emails did not come from Russia. We have the former British ambassador to Uzbekistan, Craig Murray, who has come on out and said he was handed the leaked DNC emails in Washington by an intermediary on behalf of a disgruntled Democratic insider, possibly a Bernie Sanders supporter, who was very angry over the fact that the DNC threw the election to Hillary Clinton. And he says this happened last September, and the timeline works out because WikiLeaks didn't start putting out the Podesta emails until October. And to show how desperate Hillary is getting, they're trying to go with the star power. They put out a new video of Hollywood celebrities saying, you GOP electors, you have to vote against Donald Trump here. It's the right thing to do. He's absolutely not qualified to be president here. Hillary has got all this experience. Yeah, but it's all bad experience. Benghazi, the rest of it. And so they're thinking that the celebrities are going to sway the GOP electors. Now, the GOP electors are, to one extent or another, experienced politicians. The celebrities are actors. It's all they know how to do is go around and make money pretending to be other people, and they think that makes them qualified to come on out and say, all of you who voted for Donald Trump, you are wrong, and we, the people who play act at being other people, as our line of work, know what's best for the country. So I don't think they're going to get any traction with that. And the fact that they're doing that, the fact that they're trying to roll out the celebrity star power, shows how desperate they are. And the pressure on the electors continues. Remember, all these state officials released the personal contact information of the electors, their home addresses, their phone numbers, and they're being harassed. There was one lady, Carol Side. She got a voicemail because she wasn't there to answer the phone with somebody who just started out calm and cool and you've got to vote for Hillary Clinton, and then just kind of went ballistic from there, saying he was relaying a message from God that Hillary is supposed to be the next president, and then starts crying on the phone. I mean, this is another indicator that Hillary Clinton ran her campaign as a personality cult because they're behaving like cultists. They're crying if they don't get their way. Oh, my goodness, the God is being challenged here. And, of course, we still have the story of Michael Benarian, who has been receiving death threats if he votes for Donald Trump. Now, the other day we were talking about this Harvard law professor who, in conjunction with a law firm out in California, is offering free legal support to any elector who wants to vote against the state election results, which can open them up to all kinds of legal problems. There are specific laws in something like 22 states, I think, that say you have to vote with the results of the state. And in all 50 states, the electors who vote against their state results could face perjury charges. So they've set up this thing now called the Electors' Trust to provide free and strictly confidential legal support to any elector who wishes to vote their conscience. This is called aiding and abetting criminal acts. These people are committing a crime simply by trying to encourage electors to break state law. But you know, those liberalologists, they serve a higher purpose, and so it's okay to break the law and ignore the rules because we're working for a better world, you know, and that gives us the right to do whatever we feel we need to. Now, as you know, one of the prime drivers of this whole ridiculous Russian hacking situation is Nancy Pelosi's daughter. And Neil Cavuto had her on the interview and basically said, why are you trying to flip Republican votes? And Pelosi said, no, that's a lie that could threaten her personal safety. Cavuto came back and said, do you want them to switch their votes, yes or no? And he put her on the spot to basically say, yeah, that's what this is all about, trying to convince the GOP electors to vote for Donald Trump, and it's not going to work. This rumor that's been going around that 20 GOP electors are going to vote for Hillary Clinton does not stand up to examination. GOP leaders have been contacting the Trump electors and saying, you know, are you changing or not? And they're all saying, of course not. You know, we're standing fast on this thing. And they're not being evasive and so forth because they don't need to be. But apparently, the head count of the actual electors, they don't have 20. They have the loser out of Texas, who, by the way, is in even more trouble now because he's been going around saying how he was a first responder on 9/11. And his story changes as to where he was and how he got there and what he did. And so now he's exposed as a complete liar on top of his Ashley Madison membership while being married. And apparently he was running a 9/11 charity that is now under suspicion of being a fraud. Speaking of fraud, remember that story about the Muslim girl in the New York subway who said these 3 white guys came on up talking about Donald Trump and tried to rip off her hijab and abused her and everything? That turned out to be another hoax. She's been arrested for filing a fake police report. It's amazing. Now then, as you're probably already aware, Donald Trump has approached 2 Democratic senators to have positions in his cabinet. And a lot of people are saying, oh, that's great. It's going to be a bipartisan. There's going to be representation from all sides. It's a good thing. The Democratic leadership in the Senate is in a panic because they're going to lose 2 senators. And if the senators resign their position, the governor of the states gets to appoint the replacement, and they're not entirely convinced these 2 state governors are going to pick other Democrats. Could actually cost the Democrats 2 more seats. And so they're trying to basically tell them, you don't want to be in the White House. You want to stay in the seat here and just get bored to death by speeches all day long. So they're really, really panicking. Now, we already talked about this Politico reporter, Julia Eihoff, literally sent out a message saying Donald Trump is having sex with his daughter Ivanka. I mean, that is desperation on the cusp of madness when it comes to political mudslinging. Absolutely no basis for that whatsoever. And I think she was trying to capitalize on the fact that when Donald Trump moves into the White House, his wife is going to remain in New York for 1 year to allow their child to complete the school year without disruption. Then she's going to come on down to the White House. During that year, Ivanka is going to have the office in the White House that normally would be used by the First Lady, and they're trying to make a big deal about it, oh, we're bringing this. First of all, First Lady is an honorary title. It doesn't matter who's in the office. They're not saying Ivanka is the First Lady. It's an honorary position, and they're trying to make a mountain out of this molehill. Now, one of the issues surrounding this Pizzagate hoax is that it was put on out to trick the independent media into going with a false story that could be used to discredit them or even set them up for defamation lawsuits. But it was also a distraction so that people weren't paying attention to what else was in those emails. And people are starting to go back and read them. And there's a story that came out of Investment Watch blog talking about 2 emails they found. One of them documents outright collusion by the Department of Justice to keep the Hillary Clinton campaign informed of what was going on inside the Department of Justice investigation into the email server. That's not supposed to happen. And then the other email that came on out is how John McCain was trying to put forward a plan up in Michigan to where people who had lost their homes to foreclosure were not allowed to vote because, hey, they don't have an address, right? This is John McCain who was doing this. These people have already lost their home to a crooked banking system, and now McCain is saying, well, you're unhappy with the banking system. You can't vote. All right, we're going to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And getting on back to this nonsense. Everybody now wants to get on the Russian hacking bandwagon. Lindsey Graham is now out there saying that Russia hacked his presidential campaign account. You know, me too, I got hacked by the Russians, pay attention to me, interview me, put me on the TV. It would be funny if the stakes were not so important. And I got to tell you right now, America's image as a democracy is in tatters around the world right now because of this. Future historians are going to look back at 2016 and they're going to be scratching their heads and they're going to be laughing at just how insane and over the top this got. Now, things are heating up around Hillary. As it turns out, the election has not had an impact on the FBI's investigation into the Clinton Foundation for corruption and money laundering. And apparently, officials at the FBI instructed the New York field office to continue the investigation. They're going forward. They're still investigating. And that is one of the reasons why Hillary and everybody who was involved with that Clinton Foundation are in a panic. Because that is the heart of all this corruption and drug money and influence buying and all the rest of it. When that starts to come apart, it's going to unravel all the way. And we might see a bug out. We might see some of these major players in the narcocracy for the last 30 years all of a sudden decide it's time to retire down to that big chunk of land they have down there in South America or the Cayman Islands or someplace else without extradition. All right, let's talk about the war zones. The attempt to kick up Aleppo as a battlefield again has failed. And as a result, the remaining U.S.-backed terrorist groups have effectively surrendered and agreed to all terms and conditions of the Syrian government. But, of course, Obama does not want the loss of Syria, the biggest U.S. military defeat since Vietnam, as part of his legacy. And he wants to push it over onto Trump here. And so John Kerry is out there making a statement that the fall of Aleppo does not mean the war is over. They're trying to get something going up there in Palmyra. And note the bias of the word, the fall of Aleppo. It's the liberation of Aleppo. Aleppo is in Syria. It is now back under control of the Syrian government. Kerry's language gives it away that this war was not about ISIS and Al-Qaeda, but about the conquest of Syria. And we are seeing this massive corporate media campaign to sell the idea that Assad is killing all the civilians left in Aleppo. Oh, he's terrible. See how evil he is and what horrible things are happening because you didn't back our war. Got to take a station identification break, and we'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're hour number 2. We're talking about what's going on in Syria. The attempt to reignite the conflict in Aleppo failed. The remaining jihadis, U.S.-backed terrorists, have effectively surrendered and accepted all terms and conditions of the Syrian government. This, of course, is going to free up Syrian and Russian assets who are even now preparing for a counteroffensive in Palmyra. It's only a matter of time until this thing is over. But as far as Barack Obama himself is concerned, at this point, he's past caring. He just wants the end of the Syrian war to come in Donald Trump's administration rather than be on Obama's legacy, because this is going to be the biggest military defeat for the United States ever since Vietnam. Now, Assad is out there commenting on something that we've known all along. The fact that the U.S. calls these sponsored terrorists the moderate opposition does not hide the fact that they are sponsored terrorists. And remember, every time there's been a claim of a chemical weapon attack, it's always turned out to be these sponsored terrorists attempting to frame Bashar al-Assad. The corporate media is also out there trying to sell the story that Russia and Syria really went too far in defeating the terrorists. Really, you could have done it with a lot less damage and everything. Well, they could have if the U.S. had stopped sending the weapons in there. And again, the corporate media, the prostitutes, the correspondents are paid those huge salaries to lie to you. If they stop lying, the big money goes away. And that's why they're not going to change. They're trapped by their own greed and lifestyle, and they made that moral choice a long time ago that they were going to lie for their daily bread, and they can't change that. And the corporate media is still out there trying to push this idea that the Syrian army marching into Aleppo is committing genocide against the civilians. They're just killing everybody. That evil Assad. See what happens when you don't let us overthrow foreign governments. And there is no American corporate media on the ground in Aleppo because the United States isn't welcome in Syria, either their media or their weapons. But there are Syrians in Aleppo who are sending out videos and tweets. Russian media is on the ground. They're sending out videos. There's no genocide there. The Syrian people are happy that their city is back under the control of the Syrian government. And that's a huge embarrassment to the United States, and that's why the corporate media is going to go on saying, oh, it's terrible things there. Now, interestingly enough, over at the State Department, they had a daily briefing, and there was a little bit of a stressed moment, if you will, between Associated Press reporter Brad Clapper and the spokesman John Kirby. And Clapper was asking Kirby why the U.S. is continuing to lay all the blame for what's going on in Syria on Russia. And in the context of the U.S. claiming that they were in Syria only to get ISIS and Al-Qaeda, what was Washington doing different than Moscow? And Clapper came right on out and said the U.S. has failed repeatedly doing the same thing over and over again that Russia continues to do with success. And every time Russia succeeds in helping Syria reclaim its territory, the U.S. shouts, war crimes, war crimes, war crimes. So even the Associated Press is getting fed up with all the bovine excrement. And like I said the other day, we're starting to see certain elements within the corporate media understand that they're going to have to evolve and adapt to the new reality of a better informed, skeptical population and a distributed, diverse citizens' media. And those corporate media establishments who can't evolve are doomed to extinction. We saw it in Forbes, now we're seeing it with this AP reporter. And a few others as well. Let's see. Theresa May came out with this ridiculous comment that Iran is interfering in the Middle East. Iran is in the Middle East. Great Britain is not. And this was such a bizarre statement. Iran has summoned the British ambassador to try and make some sense out of this ridiculous statement from Great Britain that Iran is interfering in the Middle East. All right, we're going to go ahead and take some phone calls. John in Barbados, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, Michael. Aloha. Looking at this situation in Aleppo, it's been resolved, basically. I have heard from various sources that with all these weapons hanging about in the rubble and what have you, citizens are picking up these weapons and are taking the odd pot shot at the terrorists so they're being bussed out. But that's the extent of what we know.
Well, they need to be very, very careful about what they pick up because there's a lot of stuff there that will detonate on being touched. Russia's already sent in demining crews. We're going to take a second here to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. We're talking about the war zones around the world and how the attempt to reignite conflict in Aleppo has failed, and now the attention is turning to Palmyra.
Well, the other thing I wanted to mention is this absolute nonsense about Russia hacking the American election, as if USA didn't interfere in the Ukraine election and even interfere in Russia's own election. They got thrown out for doing that.
Yeah, they did. I mean, that's what makes this CIA claim so nonsensical. They've got this huge, long history of rigging elections, and what they're trying to do is rig this one. It's not Russia who was trying to influence the U.S. election. It was the CIA and Hillary Clinton. And, it was Russia's fault. Russia's got a Death Star. Russia's, doing terrible, terrible things. And it's falling flat mostly because so many other elements of the government are just pulling away from this. They're delinking it. They know it's nonsense. They know the American people know it's nonsense, and they're pulling back. So this latest gambit by the liberalologists to undo the election results appears to be failing miserably. And that's why I'm very concerned over Donald Trump's physical safety between now and next Tuesday morning.
I don't know whether the Democrats understand, and these liberals in America really do understand, what stupid fools they're making of themselves. They're being ridiculed right round the world.
Yeah, they are. They absolutely are. Hillary and her people have caused so much damage to the global image of the United States of America. I mean, we can't even go on pretending we're a great nation anymore. We're exposed as a third world tin pot dictatorship, although in the case of Hillary Clinton it's a gold pot. And it's going to be decades rebuilding our image.
I think the other thing that's happening, of course, with the Brexit, with Donald Trump's win, we're seeing the rise of the right-wing parties, the nationalist parties, all over Europe. Le Pen in France and Pegida in Germany. Everybody is really fed up with this libtard nonsense.
Well, yeah, whether it's liberal nonsense or just the push for the global government, everybody's upset with that.
And political correctness is going out the window because I'll be calling
I am so glad
Christmas.
for that. Merry Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, yes, absolutely.
Or Happy Hanukkah, whatever it is that's going to make you feel good. We're not trying to offend anybody by being of good cheer in this season.
It's well, we all know it's just a corporate profit-making scheme is really Christmas, but we still enjoy it, don't we?
It is here in the United States of America, but you can find a little Christmas cheer. But I got to tell you, the Christmas that I spent in Munich, Germany, back in the 80s, I really felt that was a real Christmas. And yes, the stores were making money and they were selling things, but just the attitude of the people that they were out there to be of good cheer and hand things out and just have a midwinter celebration was very real. Here, we've noticed around as we get closer to Christmas, people almost seem angry that they're having to go through this, and they're not enjoying it because it's become an obligatory ritual. Go out, max out the credit cards, give things to people, and you know, people get burned out on it. Certainly for me, the fact that they put up the decorations so early to try and prime the pump, by the time we get to Christmas, it's no longer decoration, it's decor, and it's very tacky decor.
Well, I mean, I remember in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s in the UK, the number of towns where bands used to just strike up in the middle of the town with all the Christmas carols and the songs and what have you.
Absolutely. Same thing in Munich. Just choirs wandering around. I mean, people were walking around giving total strangers little wrapped candies and things. I mean, that's, you know, that you don't see that here.
Well, you did in the UK in the 70s and 80s, and it's changed tremendously now. I am so ashamed of my country that we've gone along with America and destroyed Libya, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Tunisia, Pakistan, everywhere. We create mayhem.
Well, it's been a very, very dark time, and I think people aren't going to realize how dark until it's finally over. So, anyway, John, I'm going to let you go. We got a bunch of other callers that are calling on in, and we're going to switch over to Alex in Florida. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Not much, Michael.
Oh, well, thank you for calling.
Hello. You're funny. That's real funny.
All right.
Hey, I was just thinking that, there was a rumor that Trump wanted to file bankruptcy for the United States, and I was thinking if we could write our debt off from the fake bank and say we don't owe you anything anymore, that might be a great option.
Well, you know,
Do you think it's possible?
Well, yeah, we could have a jubilee. We could shut down the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve has already signaled that they're going to be as obstructionist and adversarial to Donald Trump as pretty much the rest of the current system. They just did a little rate raise, but they're already saying once Trump is in the White House, they're going to be raising the rates like crazy. And, you know, that's a very real threat. The bankers have always used their ability to trash the economy to control the president. Back when Major General Smedley Butler uncovered that plot by the Wall Street bankers to have a fascist coup d'etat against Franklin Roosevelt and start a new government in this country modeled after that of Mussolini in Italy, Roosevelt wanted to arrest them and throw them in jail, and they all just simply said, the first time you arrest one of us, the rest of us will crash the economy, and we'll make sure our media blame it all on you. And so Roosevelt wasn't able to do anything until World War II officially started, at which point he nailed all these people under the Trading with the Enemies Act.
Yes. Many economists are saying there's no way we can pay the debt.
You never could.
Putting it off to our kids. We can't keep giving it to the kids. You need to take care of the issue.
Okay, Alex, here's the point. It is set up so that you can never pay the debt off. It's a system of enslavement. When you are issuing all the public currency as a loan at interest, the total debt goes up faster and higher than the available money supply. There simply is not enough money in existence to pay off the debt ever. It's designed that way so that the bankers eventually make debt slaves out of the entire nation, its government, and its people. They've been playing this scam on planet Earth for 300 years. It is time for it to come to an end. Rule by bank debt is not a legitimate form of governance at all.
Let's write them off. Let's tell them we can't pay you for those $5 trillion bombs that you dropped all over the freaking world. Period. We're not going to pay you. And I hope that Trump protects Social Security, and I hope he also works on a real single-payer health care system. That's what we need to do. We need to be a different party, not just the Republican Party. The Republican Party's messed up, too. We need to be a different party, and you started it, and we can do it.
Well, I have to be very, very honest. I think Donald Trump is inheriting an economy that is beyond repair, primarily because of that private central bank at the core of it, which by design creates more debt than money with which to pay the debt until the system collapses, which is where it is. The only way to avoid that is to simply write off the debt and nationalize the bank or take control of it the way Putin did. But if you've read my All Wars Are Bankers' Wars, you understand that the bankers will, carry out assassinations, coups d'etats, and start wars rather than let any of the people of planet Earth break free from their debt slavery.
Yes, we can either, like you say, we can either be slaves or we could be proactive and initiate a different system. That's what we have to do.
We absolutely.
There's no hope.
We absolutely need, and we need to go back to the economic system this country started with, the one that worked for the people and the nation, and the one that Alexander Hamilton worked so hard to try and overthrow right from the start.
Not to get off subject, but I heard Colin Powell on YouTube again claiming the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. We need to make it where these people that make those accusations without conclusive, factual evidence need to be prosecuted, just like George W. Bush does, and Herbert Bush, and all of them. And we need to take our country back.
We absolutely do.
You have a great day. Have a great day, Michael.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Mark in North Carolina. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, Mike? Mike, I was just at the gym before, and they had Fox News on there. That idiot, Shepard Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he was going in all kinds of tirades about Putin and Assad being butchers and committing horrible atrocities against Syrians. Now, how stupid do they think we are? I mean, I get Syrian Republic on my Facebook, and I also get some other sites. I get RT, where the reporters are actually in Syria, and you see how they're being cheered by the population.
Mm-hmm.
That they're getting the terrorists out of there, and yet they're going to just lie to our faces. They're a jerk like Shepard Smith. I mean, the guy is And then I know.
Listen, let me cut in here because we're almost out of time here, and I'm going to have to let you go for the commercial break. But I have a suggestion, not just for you, but for everybody. Because, when you're at the gym, or you're waiting at the bank, or you're at the wherever it is, they have a TV on the wall, and it's showing a news channel. And what you need to do is you need to go to the manager of that establishment and say, I really don't need to be hearing all of this stuff. Can we change channels on the TV? I don't think there's a law that forces these store owners to have Fox or CNN or whatever on those screens. And as a matter of fact, at Claire and my bank, they used to have CNN on the TV to amuse the people waiting in line. Now it's the Food Channel. Even they got sick and tired of all the nonsense coming out of corporate media, and so now it's the Food Channel, which is good because we're picking up some pretty cool recipes along the way here. But I think if you go to your the guy who runs the gym, just say, I'm really tired of this stuff here. Find another channel. Put it on Travel Channel. Put it on something else that's entertaining because we know that what's coming out of the corporate media is just a lot of nonsense. And I think probably most business owners would respect the wishes of their customers. If enough people complain, they'll start turning off those feeds. Okay?
Because, they have it fixed to a certain station. And,
there's no law that says they have to be on the news channel. They don't get a tax break for it or anything like that. If enough of their customers come up and say, I don't want to see this nonsense anymore, they'll change the channel.
And the TV next to it had CNN on.
Yeah, well,
news network.
Seems real hardcore, but they may feel that the people at the gym are all up-and-coming business people who want to be informed. But if enough of the people in the gym are saying, "This is really nonsense. I'm here to exercise and relax. Let's put something on the TV that's conducive to that," it might work. Anyway, listen, got to let you go, and we'll be back after these few words from our sponsors. And Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're going to go back to the phones. Karen in Maryland. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Okay. Hi there. If you can tell me whether there's anything to this or not. Is there an explanation as to why the colors of the Federal Reserve note have changed? I have two questions. Have changed throughout the years. And at one time, the colors were red, and they were yellow and blue, and now it's green, or at least the ink color has changed. So, do you have an explanation for that? Is there anything to it, or was it just to change the appearance? Do you know anything about that?
Well, mostly it's about trying to foil counterfeiters. You know, the problem that they're facing is they're needing to produce a paper note that is very inexpensive to produce in high volumes, but very difficult to copy convincingly in small volume. And so the addition of different color inks was done as part of that program, and also to make the denominations of the bills a little easier to recognize for people who are visually challenged. Because back when I was a kid, all of the currency was all the same color, and having different color currency does help visually challenged people deal with their commerce. Australia went even one step better with their polymer note because the edge of it is notched with a code. And the way the code is put in, you can't put more. The more notches there are, the lower the value of the note. And so that's pretty much goof-proof, and that's also to help visually challenged people deal with the currency.
Okay, and then my second question is, when it comes to other currencies other than the Federal Reserve note, there are a couple of local currencies floating around. I mean, I'm not talking about OneCoin, I'm not talking about Bitcoin, but there are other local currencies floating around. So without doing an advertisement, if you don't like to do those, do you have a preference of local currencies?
Well, I don't, and at the moment I'm not using any of them, but when the U.S. government went after the Liberty Dollar and the Ron Paul dollar, which I think was really George Bush throwing an ego tantrum, they were trying to claim that these currencies represented counterfeiting because they used the word dollar on them, even though dollar is used all around the world here. But a lot of communities will have a local currency to stimulate local trade. You know, the currency is only usable inside the city borders. Tourism and so forth. Catalina has a Catalina dollar. There's a Maui dollar down there. Back in Concord during their bicentennial, they had literally wooden nickels floating around. And nobody ever has a problem with that because if you look very carefully at the front of a Federal Reserve note, it says this bill is legal tender for all debts public and private. It doesn't say it's the only one. And currency can be whatever any two people agree to use as a medium of exchange in the carrying out of commerce. Now, during the Civil War, a lot of the Confederate cities had their own currencies because the Union was counterfeiting the currency of the Confederacy to try and crash it. And certainly during the Depression of the 1930s, a lot of towns and communities had their own internal currencies because the U.S. dollar was seen as virtually worthless. So, again, currency can be whatever any group of people agree is going to be the medium of exchange. Could be white seashells, could be, bottle caps or whatever. Again, the issue is what backs up that currency. Is it backed up by a commodity of tangible value, or is it backed up by a promise of the future slave labor of the American people, which is what backs up the U.S. Federal Reserve note?
Okay, yeah, thank you. No, I'm finished. Now, my comment about the Federal Reserve note is that it's a self-proclaimed currency, but thank you.
You're welcome, and we're going to let you go. We're coming up on another commercial break, and we're going to come back with a few more phone calls. Then we're going to close the phone lines again because we need to get some news done. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here, and the Tantrum Squad is back attacking my server. It is tiresome, to say the least. And again, what kind of a public image are Hillary's supporters putting out there? Is anybody going to like them or respect them? Or are they going to become this little isolated cult like the Scientologists are these days? Before we go back to the phone calls, though, I wanted to mention, if you noticed, there's some new extra music in our bump rotation. These are adaptations, variations on popular Christmas music. They were all created by my lovely wife, Claire, in an album called Christmas Without Borders. And you can get it at YouTube. You can get it at iTunes, and there's an ad on the front page of whatreallyhappened.com that'll take you over there so you can listen to the songs and download and have a lot of fun this holiday season. All right, we're going to go back to the phones here. Kyle in Pennsylvania, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. So I feel a little bit conflicted today.
Okay.
Because first of all, when Donald Trump gets in, I want him to go after these people. I want him to go after the Pelosi's. I want him to go after the Clintons. I want him to go after all these people who, I mean, you could seriously kind of make a case for sedition with some of this Russian hacking stuff and the electors and things.
Yeah, you could. Well, see, here, until January 20th, Donald Trump is a private citizen, so I don't think sedition would apply, but certainly slander. Both Trump and Vladimir Putin have excellent cases for slander against pretty much the entire U.S. government and corporate media.
As I said, I want him to go after these people, these animals, but that being said, I don't know if it was Clinton who was in office or if it was Obama or somebody else, I don't know how comfortable I would feel if he was targeting, the Republican candidate. If Hillary had won and she got in office and then decided, well, I'm going to go after Trump for everything that he's done. But I do see a difference in the sense that what they're doing is essentially, like I said, I feel at a certain level it is, seditionist and treasonous, and you're undermining our political process, and you need to be held accountable for that. This has gone beyond just the most normal.
Well, let's get out of the gray area. Let's get out of the gray area here, okay? There's very little they could go after Donald Trump for. That's why they're making up things about him having sex with his daughter. That's why they were hiring all these women to come on out and say that Trump was a rapist and an abuser and all this other nonsense. They were researching him, trying to find something they could use against him, and it just isn't there. In the case of the Clintons and the Bushes and that narcocracy, there is a huge harvest of criminal prosecutions waiting to happen. And, we're now hearing that the FBI is still investigating the Clinton Foundation. We know the IRS is investigating the Clinton Foundation for not being a charitable foundation. And apparently up in New York, we're just getting word that there were emails found on Huma Abedin's laptop with Podesta and Hillary and all the rest that have not yet been made public, and they're about to be made public. And there's something like, let me look at the number, it's a huge number of emails that haven't been seen before, something like 15,000 emails. And so we're going to be looking, at that stuff as well. But the issue here is one of sheer criminality, and that does need to be punished. And not because of revenge, but because we need to create a deterrent to up-and-coming politicians thinking that they can get away with the same stuff that the Bushes and the Clintons got away with. And we need to set an example for the next generation of young Americans. We're looking at our children growing up in a nation where they see the corrupt and criminal are getting all the goodies, and then we wonder why they want to emulate that. So we need to pull back on that front as well.
Fully open to, under a Trump administration, C-SPAN having just full, open, public inquisitions and trials on all these people.
Well, first of all,
I
have a problem with inquisition. And I recognize, and I'm sure Trump and his advisors recognize, there are probably some aspects of the recent history of the United States which, if fully exposed, could bring the entire government down. Now, up until Trump won the election, I was fully on board with that. A Soviet Union-style collapse of our current regime, and then we build a whole new country from the ground up. With Trump in the White House, there is a possibility that we could peacefully turn this country around and drag it back to something that works for the American people and the American nation, and I'm willing to roll the dice on that one. So I'd like to see these individual crimes being punished. I recognize and understand there are some things that probably are best left for future historians to dig on out. Oh, and by the way, apparently Obama agrees with that part of it because he has just extended the seal on the report on Bush-era torturing of prisoners for another 12 years. So they don't want you to know. But it's like the secret's out. Yes, they tortured people. And if they're not going to give us the details, then Americans are going to imagine the absolute worst that happened.
Well, and they're going to send the lowest level people to prison, as they have, and then the ones who ordered the torture, ones who set facilities for torture, ones who made it applicable are going to escape scot-free. And that is...
Okay,
that's what I want an end to.
Well, I agree with you, and we've certainly seen Wall Street doing it. Every time they're caught in another fraud, there's always some lower-level executive who gets the blame, and they either go to jail or they walk off the top of a parking structure under mysterious circumstances. But in terms of the Clinton Foundation, they're not going to be able to pass that off as mistakes made by a disgruntled lower-level employee, because everything going in and out of the Clinton Foundation went through Bill and Hillary's direct personal control. And so that is going to be what pries open the heart of this corruption, this narcocracy that's been going on for 30 years now. And I want to see that come to an end. I want to see the restoration of honest, fair, accurate, verifiable elections. And if we can accomplish those two things, then we have a chance of saving the United States and putting it back onto the path of being a great nation again.
Well, and that's where we're going to run into an issue, because once Trump does start going after all these people, we know that it's going to be sold as this is simply vengeance for, how messy the election went and everything afterwards and the recount and all that, and we need to make sure that people know.
Well, we're going to be, hang on, we're going to be getting that out of the corporate media, but nobody's listening to the corporate media anymore. That's why these things they're trying to do have all failed miserably. Only 6% of the American people still think what's on the corporate media is true and accurate and fair. And these days, as the lies get even more extreme, like the one about Putin personally supervising the hack, they keep jumping the shark over and over and over again, and the American people are just, we're not going to pay attention. Right now, the lion's share of the American audience are here online with the independent media. They're getting their news here because they know they're going to get facts here, and all they're going to get in the corporate media is more lies and propaganda. And the same exact thing happened in the Soviet Union with what was called the samizdat, which was a network of fax machines that allowed peer-to-peer citizen journalism and commentary. And the Soviet government tried to shut it down. They couldn't, just like they're trying to shut down the independent media, and will fail here as well. And once enough of the Soviet Union's people realized the extent to which the Politburo was lying to them, the whole shebang fell apart. And we're at that threshold right now, where people understand Pravda and Izvestia are lying to us. We're going to have to see what's in our fax machines today.
Well, when I heard that this morning about Putin overseeing the DNC hacks, I thought to myself, there's absolutely no way that anybody could know that. There's absolutely no way in American culture that anybody could possibly know that unless you had hacked somehow Putin's email and gotten his correspondence back and forth.
No, they're just making...
No, there's no way you can know that.
They're making it up. There's no proof Russia hacked the election. There's no proof Russia hacked the DNC emails. The people who are on the inside of that are all saying it's a leak. They're just making the stuff up. They've got that little machine out with the smoke and the bellows, and that's what they're trying to do right now.
I think you just have a dartboard, and they just throw darts.
Yeah, and
wherever it lands.
Yeah.
Putin hacking Trump.
Putin is microwaving kittens. All right, thanks an awful lot here. We're going to switch over to Scott in California. Aloha. welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. I'll make it quick. You've been saying for a while these guys are desperate. This, Hillary, Bush, banker war crowd. So I've been looking around. What are they so desperate about? There's a lawsuit at Ninth Circuit in San Francisco, Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And a day or two ago, the court held that this lady in Iraq can sue Bush and company for war crimes, crime of aggression. That's serious.
That is serious, and but of course we'll see how that plays out. But given the corrupted nature of our court system, I'm not expecting there to be a huge amount of traction on that one. But just getting verification out there that this is what the U.S. government has been doing all along, just invading other countries, stealing their wealth, bringing them under U.S. control, and justifying it all with just an endless series of lies to the American people about we're bringing them democracy, we're saving them from a cruel tyrant. And we've all heard it before, and we all now recognize it's just part of the lying pattern. And the government has destroyed their own credibility. The corporate media has destroyed their own credibility. And I have no sympathy for them at all. They did it to themselves. And so now they're out there trying to blame the independent media for all these independent media out there, and they're reporting on the DNC email leaks, and the American people should never have known about that. The American people should have just been fed the campaign speeches, and then they would have voted for Hillary. So we literally have the ruling class, corporate media, and the government. Their big complaint is that the American people have become too smart despite Common Core. That's what they're upset about.
Well, okay, so something else that happened. This Congresswoman Gabbard from Hawaii.
Yes.
She goes to visit Trump at Trump Towers. Trump invited her, by the way.
Yes.
To discuss Syria. And then 2.5 weeks later, she puts in that no funding for terrorists stuff. So something's going on. I understand their desperation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Trump is at the epicenter, and I think they're going to be hunted down and prosecuted.
I would love to see that. I would really love to see that, and even better than that, I would love a job on that group that's going to go after some of these people. Anyway, Scott, going to let you go here. Going to take one more phone call, then do some news here. Sherry in Texas, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Thank you. Yeah, to start with, Trump, the nice thing about Trump is that he can't be lied to because he's on the side of truth. And he's not beholden to anyone. But the way it used to be, the guy at the top where the buck stops, and I put Colin Powell in that category, I always thought he didn't know he was lying and was angry when he found out that there was no weapons of mass destruction, because the guy at the top can't afford to know the truth, because if he gets on the witness stand, he can say, I didn't know, and be telling the truth. But the bad guys who lied to him, who not only and told him the lie but didn't tell him it wasn't true, these bad guys will know the truth, and not only that, they can also prove he lied if he had known he was lying. So then he gets impeached. So it's like maybe Obama and some of these others, it won't be like this in the future, but Obama and people like that will say, don't tell me the truth because I don't want to be responsible. If I get on a witness stand, you can prove I'm lying because you'll know it. You're the one that told me the lie. And if I know I'm lying, I'm toast. Do you understand what I mean?
Well, I understand what you mean, and it's a rather convoluted theory, but let's go back and correct a few things. First of all, Colin Powell did know he was lying when he went to the United Nations with his spiel about Iraq's weapons of mass destruction. In fact, the reports are there was a serious fight in the White House about this, and Colin Powell was very much not happy about being ordered to lie to the United Nations. Now, once you concede that these people at this level are lying, then if you're going to lie to the United Nations, then you're capable of lying on the witness stand under a court of law. And unless somebody has something hard to hit you with perjury, then you're going to skate on that scot-free. But the people at the top, in this case the president, I'm sure they want to isolate themselves from scandals and illegal actions, but they're all control freaks. And we know that Obama has made many claims, one example being that when the email server scandal broke, he got on TV and said, I only heard about it from the network news myself. It's shocking and terrible. Then we find out from the leaked emails that he had known all along. He'd been using Hillary's private email server to communicate with her. And that's what politicians do. They lie. From the moment they get up to the moment they go to sleep, they lie about everything. In fact, I think they avoid telling the truth out of fear we might learn how to tell the difference. And so the way to be an effective liar is to lie about everything. I remember when Bill Clinton was lying about giving up Big Macs and everything, and then we caught him in a McDonald's here on Oahu.
Yeah. Well, it makes them culpable if they know they're lying, and the bad guys who told them the lie know they're lying and can prove it. If they get on a witness stand, they're impeached, they're toast. That's all there is to that.
Or they wind up.
They wouldn't want to know.
Or they wind up in Fort Marcy Park. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
And that is a big reason for all that long line of dead bodies behind the Clintons. They were all the people who had that inside information that could put them into prison. Okay?
Great point. Great point. Thank you.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to close the phone lines now, and we're going to get some news done as we head into our third hour. Going on back to the war zones, China is now expressing its right to ready the slingshot in the South China Sea. To basically say they're putting out military installations to deal with this constant incursion by the United States into what China considers its territorial waters. There's a reason they call it the South China Sea, after all. And I think it was the Cairo Convention. It was an international agreement that said, yes, this is all China's territorial waters. So they're going to ready their slingshot in the South China Sea, and given the current quality of U.S. weapons, that may be all they need to win. We're going to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And obviously, that last little piece of music was not by Claire, but certainly it fits the festive season, and a reminder that the old Farmer's Almanac was right. Winter was late, but it's going to be hard, and somewhere out in the hinterland, Al Gore is wailing and screaming in frustration. Now, getting on back to the war zone here, U.S. troops are scheduled to arrive in Europe next month to reassure our allies that we are ready to deal with Russian aggression. Because we all know Vladimir Putin is just this evil, evil man who wants to invade Europe and do whatever they want him to do here. As I mentioned earlier, the Obama administration has ordered the report on the CIA torture of detainees after 9/11 to be sealed for an additional 12 years. There must be something really, really nasty in there. And again, America's image around the world has been destroyed by this. Turning to the economic news, China has been forced to halt trading in bond futures after a record bond market crash. And apparently there was a major, major sell-off. China's economy was very dependent on the U.S. economy because China's a manufacturing and exporting nation, and the United States isn't a manufacturing nation, and they import a lot of things from China. You see them down there at the shopping malls during your Christmas shopping. But Americans don't have the money to buy the volume of manufactured products from China that they used to. And so China's economy has been dragged down with the U.S. economy. And that is another illustration of why globalism is not such a great idea. It is now being estimated that Obamacare will cost taxpayers an extra $10 billion with a B next year because of double-digit premium hikes. Unless Trump can bring it under control. This was a huge ripoff. And you know, when they were going through this whole Obamacare debate, I related the story about how when auto insurance became mandated by the government, the result was the premiums went right through the roof, the deductibles went sky high, the service evaporated because they didn't need to work to get their customers anymore. The government said, you will buy this. And the same thing has happened with Obamacare. Anytime the government mandates something be bought, they're creating effectively a monopoly, and they behave like one, maximizing their profits. Now, over in Dallas, they're dealing with the pension system, and because the pension system is in trouble, a lot of Dallas police officers who are close to their retirement are retiring early in order to get into the pension system now while it still actually has some money there. So that's a big, huge problem as well. Another bad day on the Baltic Dry Index, dropped 37. We'll be back after station identification. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 3. And the phone lines are currently closed because I got a bunch of news I need to catch up on here. Turning away from the economic news to immigration, things are getting very, very ugly over in Europe, a victim of this George Soros dream of a one-world government and an ethnically blended human population of worker bees and death slaves. And they actually believed that they were just going to throw all these disparate cultures together and everybody was going to hug each other and trade wet, sloppy kisses and sing around the campfire, holding hands and singing Kumbaya, toasting marshmallows or something. Story coming out of the Express in Great Britain. Rome is literally on the verge of a war between the refugees and the city's poor as resources begin to be stretched to the breaking point. Now, apparently, over in London, 1,000 Muslims had a rally. They blocked London streets outside the embassy at Belgrave Square, chanting Aloha Snack Bar or whatever it is that they're chanting there, and demanding a global Islamic caliphate. And I'm sure George Soros looked up and said, they said global? They said global? Count me in. I don't care which way it goes. If it's global, I'm all for it here. Now, Angela Merkel, as you know, has declared she's going to run for another term as chancellor. And she is facing the wrath of the German people who are fed up with the refugee problem. And so, in a move to appease the German voters, Angela Merkel is sending home a load of failed asylum seekers to Kabul. Millions have come in, they're sending a bunch of them out, and Merkel's going to say, see, I'm controlling it, I'm keeping it under control. We're being reasonable, not everybody's being allowed to stay. It's a token gesture, and everybody knows it's a token gesture here. Apparently, the European Union as a whole is starting to fragment over the issue of the Brexit. Apparently, the European Union Parliament is very upset that they're not going to be involved in the negotiations. Members of the European Parliament are threatening to basically start their own Brexit talks with Great Britain, move the process along. And it's basically signaling that Brussels is starting to factionalize and break up, much as Washington, D.C. is. Now, do you remember that Ohio State University attacker, Abdul Razak Ali Artan? And he was allowed into the United States, was given asylum along with his mother and 6 siblings. It turns out, according to Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley, that the Department of Homeland Security knew this guy was a possible recruitment target of Islamic terrorists, but said, let him in anyway. Because it's always handy to have a couple of ready-to-go terrorists sitting around the country for the next false flag. You know, these guys don't grow on trees. We have to have some of them on the leash somewhere. Now, do you remember that Egyptian plane crash that happened in June? And Europe was saying mechanical failure, pilot got crazy. Egyptian investigators were saying they thought it was an attack, a possible bombing, or a possible accidental shoot-down by nearby military planes. Well, the Egyptian authorities have announced they have found explosive residue on the victims of that crash. So mechanical fault is now off the table here. Something happened. Either it was a terrorist bomb or it was an accidental shoot down, which does happen a lot. Back when TWA 800 was accidentally shot down in a test of the Navy's Aegis CEC system, I went out and I did some research, and the United Nations at that time acknowledged 25 accidental shoot downs of commercial airliners by the world's military, most of which were and are still classified. Some are acknowledged. Obviously, when the USS Vincennes shot down the Iranian Airbus in full view of everybody, that one was kind of hard to cover up. But there was the Atavia DC-9, the Aer Lingus shoot down. It could be that Malaysian Airlines 370 was the victim of a shoot down, according to statements made by oil workers who were right underneath where it exploded. And, of course, TWA 800 itself. Now then, we're going to go ahead and open the lines. Let a few more callers in here. And in the world of computers and science and everything, 3D printing is really taking off, and it's been demonized by the gun grabbers because you can now spit out gun parts outside the control of the government. We're going to take a break here to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are rejoining our network. We're talking about computers and computer technology and 3D printers. And the 3D printers are increasing in capability and coming down in price. More and more people are getting them for home use, for art projects, for gun manufacturing, and other things. And there is a new consumer-level 3D printer coming from a German startup called Next Dynamic, and the product is called the Next D1. This is a multicolor, multi-material 3D printer, and it can work in metals and in a conductive resin, and can literally make printed circuit boards that work. That is so cool. Because when I was a kid and first getting into electronics, I would make my own printed circuit boards, and it's messy and smelly and it's acid and all the rest of it. Just being able to spit one out would be absolutely amazing. And in that far-off future, when I actually have money and a lot of free time on my hands, I'd love to play with a 3D printer and take some of these things I've made in the computer animation software and turn them into real objects. Actually, I'm going to make little dolls of Claire and leave them all over the place. Anyway, as I mentioned earlier in the show, the Senate has now followed the House in passing a bill called the 21st Century Cures Act, and it provides funds for liberally favored medical research. But the real impact is somewhere else, because it is basically eroding some of the safety mechanisms involved in the development and testing and selling of pharmaceuticals. They're reconfiguring the drug regulatory process, lowering the standards for the approval of drugs, and this act allows drug firms to rely on much flimsier forms of evidence for approval of their therapies. I mean, it's already bad enough as it is. And Congress is basically telling the big pharmaceuticals, we trust you. It's just whatever you've got in there, go ahead and put that stuff in there. There's been another major breach over at Yahoo. Apparently, earlier this year, hackers stole details from more than 1 billion user accounts, including names, addresses, phone numbers, weakly hashed passwords. And apparently the hackers were in there going all the way back to 2013, and they've only just now been discovered. This is separate from the breach that was announced in September. And I even got an email, because I have a Yahoo account, which I never use. But they said, you have to change your password. The things are out there. Really? Since 2013. Where's the NSA? Aren't they being paid all of these huge sums of money to stop this kind of thing? To stop the ransomware writers? Is the NSA really this gigantic waste of taxpayer money? They're certainly not stopping the Tantrum Squad from hitting my server, which they're doing right now as we speak. And that's policy. I'll share a little story with you. Some years back, when we first moved here to Hawaii, and I had an earlier version of this website up, and we were being hacked. Somebody in Canada was trying to break into the server and trying to plant things on the server that would get me into trouble. And being a good little American, I contacted the FBI, and I said, I'm the victim of a cybercrime. It was big news back then. Cybercrime, we've got to get ahead of it. And they failed doing that. And I was told by the FBI agent that took my report, off the record, and I'm not going to name names, so don't ask. But this FBI agent was very forthcoming, told me off the record that the U.S. attorney had sent out instructions that cyber attacks on Truth Movement, Patriot Movement websites were not to be investigated. You're on your own. So that's kind of what's going on with there. This next story is just so bizarre. The other day I was talking about how, computers are cool, computers are fun, they can be very, very useful. We don't need to have them in everything. I have a big computer set up here. The rest of my lifestyle is getting decidedly Luddite. I don't want computers in I don't want the Internet of Things. Every time they come out with a new gizmo, it's immediately hacked and turned into a botnet. And apparently there is a company that has put out, how shall I put this delicately and politely, an adult sex toy that has an embedded computer and a Bluetooth link so that you can control this device from your smartphone or your tablet, or your partner can turn it on from a short distance away, like when you're out at dinner and he just wants to get the reaction or something. That's a little out there. Now, here's the problem, because there have been radio control these things for years and everything. Here's the problem. Apparently, at the DEF CON hacker conference in Las Vegas, it was demonstrated that this device was sending back to the manufacturer information about how and when it was being used. And we don't know exactly what that information was being used for, obviously marketing. But I think that's a little tacky. I think that is very, very tacky indeed. All right, so let's talk about human-caused global warming. And by the way, the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443, 800-313-9443. Up in Chicago, they are being hit by intense, intense cold. They're getting all these blasts coming down from the Arctic, all over Canada, all over the northern U.S. They're setting all-time cold temperature records. We're still a few days away from the official start of winter. And they are seeing those temperatures 30 degrees below normal for this time of year. Now, the carbon Nazis are still out there screaming, well, the Arctic cold has traded places with the human-caused global warming, and the human-caused global warming is up in the Arctic, and if you could get to the North Pole, which we know you can't, to verify for yourself what we're saying, you could walk around in your Bermuda shorts and, your suntan oil, and everything would just be absolutely wonderful. And that's their current spin on this. But at this point, it's becoming very, very obvious that the global warming hoax was just exactly that. And they're still out there trying to push the idea that humans are warming the earth and they've got to tax carbon. And they try and pull back, and instead of global warming, they're saying climate change, but they run into a little bit of a problem. Because once they acknowledge the earth is cooling, then it doesn't make any sense to tax carbon, does it? Because if Al Gore was correct and carbon dioxide in the atmosphere warms the planet, we need that if we're going into a new little ice age and a Maunder minimum. Now, NASA's already discovered that carbon dioxide in the atmosphere does not, in fact, behave like the glass pane in a greenhouse. That, in fact, carbon dioxide is an atmospheric coolant. Water vapor is the biggest greenhouse gas up there, but you're not going to get people to pay a cloud tax. Methane is 10 times as potent a greenhouse gas as even Al Gore thought carbon dioxide was. But most methane comes from bovine flatulence, deep crust microbes, and termites that are life forms far too intelligent to listen to anything any American politician has to say. So that didn't work on Al. So how do they justify imposing a carbon tax on you if the snow and ice is pouring on down? They have to go back on out and say global warming is real. You're not seeing it in front of you, but take our word for it. It's all around the rest of the world, and they've got scorching temperatures in all these other places you can never get to and verify for yourself. Back in 2000, they were saying snowfalls are a thing of the past. And we've had several record-setting winters since then. Remember 2009? That was a good one. The UK Met Office came on out in autumn and predicted a snow-free winter for Great Britain due to human-caused global warming, and Britain just got socked with snow and ice. It was totally white. Looking at it from space, it was like you were looking at a globe where somebody had just painted all of Great Britain in white. It was that solid. And so the carbon Nazis have got a bit of a problem. You have all those who invested in green projects who are losing money. In fact, we just had another one come through here. Let me skip on down here. Where is it? SunPower Solar is having to lay off 2,500 employees. All of the corporate media that got on board this hoax are realizing that it is another nail in the coffin of their credibility. All these so-called science channels on TV bought into it. Now they're trying to figure out how they can get out of it and maintain some semblance of their former reputations. Human-caused global warming is turning out to be one of the biggest scientific hoaxes of the age. And everybody who got caught up in it, was part of it, are struggling to keep their reputations, let alone their funding, to keep this thing going. And isn't it amazing, after all these years of record-setting winters, they still can't bring themselves to say, maybe we were wrong? Because it was always political. It was never science. If it had been genuine science, when the world started cooling, they would have said, oh, we're going into a cooling phase. Problem solved. Let's go find something else to research. The dead giveaway is anytime somebody says the word consensus. Because consensus is not science, and science is not consensus. Consensus is a political word. It means we've bought and bribed and blackmailed enough people to nod their heads in agreement with us that you should believe what we're telling you. Because they're all wearing white laboratory coats, and they have gold things hanging on the walls. And that's why you should pay attention to them. And anybody who's out there still clinging to the belief that it's impossible to have a wide-ranging conspiracy to defraud ordinary people, human-caused global warming is the perfect textbook example. It involved the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It involved NASA. It involved NOAA, the Hadley Climate Research Unit at the University of East Anglia, Penn State, New Zealand Meteorological Bureau, the UK Met Office, Discovery Channel, National Geographic. They were all on board of this, and it never stood up. How did National Geographic respond to the cooling Earth? Last year they ran an article, "Why don't people believe scientists?" Well, you're not supposed to believe science. It's not a religion. It's not a belief system. It's the real world. And the real world has not matched all those global warming, the predictions I mean, even economists don't miss it as badly as all those scientists claiming the Earth was getting warmer. Got to take a break for commercials. We got a caller waiting on the line, and we'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We got about a half hour to go here, and of course, what follows my show is John Stadmiller and his program, and he wanted me to share with you. You're probably going to want to. Don't touch that dial. Just stay tuned in because Gerald Celente of Trends Research Institute is going to be John Stadmiller's guest for the first half hour of the program, talking about Donald Trump and what we're going to be seeing with him after January 20th. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that one here. Let's grab ourselves a phone call. Mike in Tennessee. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Greetings, Michael. Was that Hank Williams Sr. that's singing that song you played in the intro?
No, that's the one about. I wasn't even paying attention to the music there, but I think that's the one about. His name is Jeremiah something. If you go to the website for the radio show, which is wrhradio.com, you will find partway down the page. There's a player that has all of the bump music for the show. And it's got all the information about where the bump music came from, and all the artists, the original recording artists, and those who gave us permission to let us use the music.
Okay, that old song kind of sounds like Hank Williams Sr., but do you have an email address on your website? I've been trying to reach out to you, and I didn't know if there was an option on your website for that.
Well, yeah, I mean, up at the top, right underneath the green banner, it says email WRH. And you can just click that, and it will open up your mail client, and you can send me an email.
Okay. Well, you're talking about websites being hacked. Well, my website was shut down today, and I contacted the company that's managing the domain, and they said, well, you know, we sent you an email a month ago, and we're moving it over to another platform, and because of that, it's going to take 2 weeks to format it.
Boy, so that's kind of weird. I don't know who your ISP is. I mean, my server gets upgraded on a pretty regular basis, but the transition is overnight. The website is down for maybe 2 hours while they do it. So I don't know who your ISP is, but you might want to consider trading up.
Yeah. The reason I call is that invariably, most people that refer to what we're dealing with as a government, a corrupt government, in reality, it's a corporation posing as government. And there's a show that comes on Saturday night, and the host, Al Whitley, was on Tuesday night for John Stadmiller. And on her website, anticorruptionsociety.com, she has a tab called Lawfully Yours, and it explains what's going on. And part of that is that it references the Clearfield Doctrine, which was a Clearfield Trust lawsuit. And in that, the Supreme Court admitted that the United States government is a corporation, and that when a government becomes a corporation, it lays down its sovereignty and becomes no different than a simple person, and therefore it cannot be a government. It is a corporation posing as government. It's no different, in my view, than a burglar kicking in your door and coming in and trying to steal your stuff and rape your wife. You've got every right to, pick up the baseball bat and go to town. And it's, even if the burglar comes in and says, I'm the government, he's still a crook. And what I see extorting everybody in this country via the tax system and you name it, the guys with the blue lights and the black uniforms and the guns pulling you over, trying to engage in commerce on the side of the road. It's a corporation posing as government from top to bottom. And in this country's foundation, there was no room for corporations. It was actually forbidden. The same with people with titles of nobility. They couldn't hold office because their loyalty was to somebody else, not us. Corporations' loyalty is to the corporation making a profit, not us. Therein lies the problem. So I think it's high time that, we get back on the page of just scrapping what's going on, eliminating it, and starting back over with a self-governing republic, which is what we originally had. Commerce can still go on. People can still buy and sell and trade. It's just we don't have the robber barons raping us and stealing us blind and putting us in the prisons for crimes against the state.
Well, you know, there's well, I'll tell you what. We're going to have to take a commercial break. Hang on to the phone. I'm going to come right back to you after these words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we're having a little conversation with a caller about how supposedly the courts have acknowledged that the U.S. government isn't a sovereign institution anymore, but in fact a full corporation. Now, the first thing that occurs to me when I hear that is if, in fact, the United States government is a for-profit corporation, then it has lost all sovereign immunity, and we, the people, have a right to sue this corporation as we would sue any other corporation for breach of contract, failure to perform, failure to deliver. So, hey, that's going to make the lawyers all happy.
Well, the problem is, Michael, that the courts are part of that corporation, so until we restore a constitutional court, and since, 38, that they've applied all statute law and all the constitutions shelved since they brought in the statute law. So we don't even have a constitution anymore. The courts are all statutory, which is corporate policy. This company that canned my website is called web.com. And now there is a way that my website can be seen. It's mp4ce.samsbiz.com, which is what I originally created it under some 10, 12 years
well,
ago.
that sounds to me like your server is actually up and running, and that's a configuration problem with the second domain name. Anyway, the thing to keep in mind here, I understand that we may be heading to a Soviet Union-style collapse of the U.S. government, and we're going to have to start all over from scratch, and we're going to have some ironclad rules going on no more private central banking. Believe it or not, when the United States was first formed, there was actually a ban on lawyers serving in the federal government. And I think that might be a good one to have either, because Congress is certainly not a representative body of the American people. It's filled with lawyers and inherited wealth and a bunch of people who behave, even today, like a bunch of high school socias. Remember the high school clique, the kids whose parents had all the money and they got away with everything, and they grew up and got into the government, and they're just as childish, only now they've got nuclear weapons.
The original 13th Amendment forbid titles of nobility holders to hold any office. And in this country, you couldn't have a corporation. Corporations were rejected because you got to be a live human being with flesh and skin in the fight. And a corporation basically is a fiction on paper. So going back to that,
Abraham Lincoln had some very strong words about that as well, because the idea of having a business attached to a flesh and blood human being is it limited how much wealth that business could acquire. And then on the death of the person and the dissolution of the business, the money got pumped back into the society. Corporations are effectively immortal, and they accumulate wealth over time until that sheer weight of that wealth becomes a threat to the republic itself. And that was the point that Lincoln was trying to make. Anyway, listen, I need to let you go. We got another caller I want to get to, and I got some news I need to report on. So let's switch over to Tom in Florida. Aloha, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Tom, are you there? Tom, are you there? Okay, I'm hearing something that sounds like a tin can and a string. Tom, can you try and call back in, because I can't understand what you're saying? Okay, all right, there we are. Now then, we are hearing a very alarming bit of news, and this was reported over at Investment Watch blog. And basically, the government of Japan and TEPCO have very quietly acknowledged something that was kind of obvious for a while now. They're basically losing the Battle of Fukushima. The meltdowns underneath those ruined reactors are out of control. There's no amount of cooling that's going to shut it down. There's spontaneous fission taking place down there in the ground, and they don't know what's going to happen. What's really amazing is Akira Kurosawa, who's a very famous Japanese filmmaker, did this surrealist collection of stories at one point, one of which was how Japan had been devastated by a meltdown of a nuclear reactor which triggered a volcano. And, you know, it's kind of weird, art mimicking life. But we've known all along, like everything else, governments, corporations lie. They don't want you to know what's going on. I remember that big whopper that they told when there was that gigantic explosion from one of the reactor buildings and this cloud shot way up in the sky. And that was about the same time they said the radioactive levels were just sky high. And then 24 hours later they said, oh, we made a mistake on the calculator. It's not that radioactive. And that was just a steam explosion. Okay. And the problem I had with that was twofold. First of all, the water that would be in a steam explosion is itself radioactive. That's what's in the primary cooling loop of that style reactor. Second of all, when you have a steam explosion, it means hydrogen is combining with oxygen to produce the steam. Steam is white. Should look like a cloud. The cloud that came out of the reactor was this pale, sickly yellow-green, which is the same color as the quadrivalent form of plutonium oxide. So we knew they were lying about that, and then they got Ann Coulter to come on out and say, you know, a little radiation's actually good for you. And I think at this point, a lot of people are waking up to the realization that it isn't just occasionally that we're being lied to by the governments, by the corporations, by the corporate media. It's constant and never ending. If you are depending on government spokespeople, the commercial news networks and media, then you are absolutely deaf, dumb, and blind in terms of what's really going on in the world. You are fed lies from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. This medication is safe. This is good for you. You should love the politicians. This war is necessary, just, and moral. Humans are warming the earth. Saddam has nuclear weapons. Assad has sarin gas. On and on and on and on and on. And people are waking up to that, and that's another reason they're in such a panic. They're trying to reassert control, declare the independent media treasonous. That's actually in the current iteration of the National Defense Authorization Act. The independent media can be investigated for treason because reporting a point of view different from the government is now considered treason. That's how scared they are. And my opinion continues to be that the fastest way to bring down a dictatorship is to force them to act like one where everybody can see it, which is exactly what's going on right now. All right, looks like we got Tom in Florida back. Tom, are you there?
Yeah, good afternoon, Michael.
Okay, I can hear you much better now. What's going on?
No, yeah, I just want to bring up the fact that on the media was talking today that Comey told Trump that the Russians did not hack the election, and what now Comey is telling them this, and then you have these liberal Democrats screaming their heads off. They're crying like babies and saying that Trump did this with the Russians and all that. But let me ask you, did you see the interview yesterday with Cavuto and Pelosi's daughter?
Oh yeah, I mean we got the tape on the front there, and basically Cavuto nailed her and said this is all just a political job to convince the GOP electors to vote for Hillary Clinton, and it's failing miserably because the GOP leadership has been contacting the GOP electors, and they're all saying absolutely not. We don't care about the death threats. We're going to do our duty as it was delegated to us to do. So, like I said, Hillary needs 41 Trump electors to defect. She's not going to get that. And she doesn't have enough even to throw the election into the House of Representatives, which is why I'm very, very concerned about Trump's physical safety between now and next Tuesday morning. And frankly, if I were in charge of his security, I would have Trump locked up in a vault someplace with plenty of food and air supply and comfort and TV and everything, and not let him out until Tuesday morning. Because these people are desperate. We have got a group of people who are steeped in drug money corruption, and they all understand that when it starts to unravel under a Trump presidency, it's all going to unravel, and a lot of people are going to be going to jail. And
Michael,
go ahead.
The sheeples, there's so many sheeple in this country now, it's disgusting. They're mindless sheeples, I call them. And, I want to get back to this guy, Gruber. You remember Gruber told them about the healthcare thing? These people are so dumb, don't even know what's in it. And Pelosi's old lady saying, you're going to have to read it to know what's in it. And you got this Gruber. I was wondering if Trump is going to have this guy arrested, Gruber, for trying to mislead the American public for what he did with this Obamacare.
Well, here's the problem, okay? If ordinary Americans lie, it can result in legal repercussions. If you lie under oath, you can go to jail. If you tell a lie about somebody, you can be sued for slander or libel or defamation. But politicians have been taking the position for years that political lies are protected free speech under the First Amendment, which is kind of bizarre because the First Amendment exists to protect the truth, not to protect the liars. We've talked before about that Fox News synthetic bovine growth hormone lawsuit, which established there is no law requiring the corporate media to tell the American people the truth, that the management of corporate media can order their prostitutes and correspondents to lie to the public, and if the prostitutes and correspondents refuse to lie, they can be fired legally for refusing to lie to the public. And that tells you all you really need to know about the corporate media. The system is set up so that we have to be truthful and they're allowed to lie with impunity. Now, of course, we've taken that away from them, and the number of people who are still sheeple is a very small minority, 6% of the population, as of the last time we checked the numbers on that. So, people are waking up. Zbigniew Brzezinski described it as the global political awakening. Of course, from his point of view, that's a bad thing. They wanted us all to stay asleep and believe what the corporate media was telling us and trust our government that they were doing the very best thing for us, when basically government's job is to set us all up to be looted by this or that corporation for the few pennies still remaining in our pockets.
Michael, one more thing I want to bring to your attention.
Okay.
This Muslim girl in New York that's claiming that 3 white men that were Trump supporters are screaming all kinds of Trump hate at her. She just admitted she's lying. But the fact of the matter is that she did that. She should be getting the same punishment that 3 guys did assault her that they would be getting. The assault that she's done on the white males in this country is disgusting. And let me tell you, Michael, what's happening here is why that's another reason we shouldn't be bringing these Muslims in here, because they're going to be always screaming this and that about.
Well, hold it. First of all, it's not just the Muslims who do this. We've seen all these so-called anti-Semitic hate crimes. There was that student up at Georgetown University who was caught painting swastikas on her own door. This kind of stuff goes on all the time to play for sympathy and get media attention for your agenda. Now, this Muslim girl in New York did get arrested for filing a false police report. Apparently, she spent a little time in jail. And it's a minor charge, and she'll be out with a wrist slap. But it's not like she just walked away from this hoax without any consequences going on. But behind all of this is the fact that our nation has lost its moral compass from the lust of this ink and paper stuff to keep the bankers happy, and the fact that when all hierarchical structures inherit the morality of those at the very top. And we've had 30 years of a corrupt criminal government, and we shouldn't be surprised that as a result we are living in a corrupted criminal society.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Michael. I don't know what else to say other. I just think that they should, after they arrested her, they should actually really arrest George Soros for what he's doing to the United States. Soros.
Yeah, Soros is a major problem, and it's proof. I mean, Soros to me right now is the prime justification for socialism because he illustrates what people with way too much money are capable of doing. Soros is not an elected official. He's not part of our government legally, and yet he's meddling and tinkering all over the place. And I wish these same people who are screaming over an imagined interference in the U.S. by Russia would take a look at just how much interference Soros has been behind. Black Lives Matter, all this stuff, the refugees. He's one of these people who thinks having that kind of money gives him a right to play God, to treat the planet Earth and all of its people like personal toys. Bill Gates is another one. He's out there with his money pushing mandatory sterilization by vaccine. these people were not chosen to be our rulers and our leaders. They simply have enough money to buy whatever it is they want. And that, of course, is also a problem with our current political leadership, going on back to that CIA gun and drug running operation out of Arkansas 30 years ago.
I agree, Michael. One of them is Goldfinger, the other one's Stinky Finger. That's all I can tell you. And, you know, all I can say is this, you know, we got Trump in there now, and I pray for the best, and I think he's going to do a great job, and, you know, I think the country's going to turn around a little bit, if anything.
Well, we have a chance.
I think it's going to be going in the right direction.
We have a chance to turn this country around without having to go through a collapse or a civil war and a revolution, and I'm willing to roll the dice that we can pull that off. Okay?
I agree, Mike.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thanks an awful lot.
Thank you for taking my time.
We're going to let you go here. What George Soros reminds me of, and I've mentioned this before, there was a movie way, way back called The $1 Billion Brain. It starred Michael Caine, and it was sort of a follow-on to a franchise called the Ipcris File movies. And the storyline was basically this billionaire, who was played in the movie by Ed Begley, who was using his money to start World War III with the Russians, just because he had enough money to do it. And Soros is the real-life version of that character. I've got enough money to just do whatever I want with the world, therefore I have the right to do that. And that is definitely wrong. I did not vote for Soros to be in charge of my life. I did not vote for Bill Gates to be in charge of my medical care and vaccines. And there has to be some controls. And one of the controls, of course, is a tax policy that instead of forcing the money upward to the ultra-rich, recycles it back down to the lower levels of the economy so the system can keep on ticking. That's what we really, really need. Right now we're living under economic fascism, and it seems like there's this push to create a global fascist economic dictatorship. That's what the New World Order is really all about, a global fascist economic dictatorship. And we're going to take a break for commercials, back with the last segment of our program after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, last segment of our program today. And a reminder that Gerald Salenti is going to be John Stadmiller's guest for the first half hour of John's program, which is following immediately. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. We're going to be talking about Donald Trump here. I'm looking at a story here right now where apparently the corporate media is now putting on out that Russia was behind the Pizzagate scandal. And Russia is trying to plant child porn on the computers of America's politicians like, poor old Anthony Weiner and all the... I mean, talk about jumping the shark here. And in the latest embarrassment, the New York Times ran an editorial called Truth and Lies in the Age of Trump, which was out there saying that the corporate media is good and Donald Trump and his supporters are all liars. And right in the middle of this editorial was a fake news story claiming that Alec Baldwin has died at age 58, which I think he's still with us. I'm going to double check, but I think he's still with us. The European Union has now extended their sanctions against Russia amid the threat from Ukraine. I'm waiting for Hillary to come on out and say that these new 15,000 never-seen-before emails from Huma Abedin's laptop were put there by the Russians. They really are in thrash mode on this here. A little bit of good news from South Korea, and this has to do with energy production. Now, we all understand that fission nuclear power based on uranium is very dangerous. It's very toxic. They can't deal with the waste. There is a type of fission reaction involving thorium that's considerably cleaner and safer, but it doesn't make bomb stuff, which is why it's never been pursued in this country. But behind all of that has been what is called the holy grail of nuclear power, and that is controlled fusion, which is what powers the sun. And it promises vast amounts of energy without the waste disposal problem that you have with uranium fission reactors. It can't explode or melt down. If anything goes wrong, it simply stops working completely. A lot of countries are working on hot fusion as opposed to the cold fusion. And South Korea has set a new record with their research reactor sustaining a plasma for more than a minute. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but in what's called the tokamak-style fusion reactor. The fusion takes place inside that plasma so that they can contain the energy, not have it melt down the outside, and being able to maintain that plasma and fusion continuously is essential to continuous production of energy. And up until recently, plasma formation has been clocked in microseconds or seconds, and this was more than a minute, and that means they're on the track to solving the problem of keeping a plasma stable, operating over long periods of time, and that is going to seriously change the energy market entirely. Fusion-powered electricity is going to be very inexpensive. Anyway, there's the music. Time for me to get out of here. Stay tuned for John Stadmiller and Gerald Salente. We'll be back here tomorrow, Friday, on the Republic Broadcasting Network, and the lovely Lady Claire will be with us. So have a good evening. Aloha, America.